Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. Donald Trump had claimed that he can do a deal and end the war in Ukraine in a single day. But now, Donald Trump has made military aid conditional to Kiev if it were to allow the United States of America access to its rare earth minerals. And this week, Volodymyr Zelensky has said, let's do a deal, opening up the once classified maps of Ukraine's rare earth minerals. As things stand at the moment, about 20% of Ukraine's mineral resources, including about half of its rare earth deposits, are under Russian occupation. And the biggest fear of the American deep state is that Vladimir Putin could open up the resources captured in Ukraine to China, Iran, and North Korea. If Donald Trump is anything, he's transactional. His predecessor Joe Biden had backed the Ukrainian war effort to expand the frontiers of NATO. But Donald Trump has now indicated that he might now be willing to back the Ukrainian war effort, provided Washington can get access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals. And for those people who are expecting Donald Trump to end the Ukraine war in that proverbial one day, they might have to just wait a bit longer. This is what the night sky looked like over Kiev as the air defense systems were activated to shoot down a barrage of Russian drones aimed at the Ukrainian capital in the wee hours of the 8th of February. The Russian invasion of Ukraine that began 3 years ago is nowhere near its end. Despite an almost unlimited supply of Western weapons, the Ukrainians have steadily lost territory. But it isn't just American manufactured weapons that are being used to blunt the Russian onslaught on the battlefield. Increasingly, reports such as this, pointing to an increasing number of American fighters getting killed in the battlefield of Ukraine, have emerged in the American media. More than a lack of weapons, Ukraine's problem is its diminished fighting manpower, and foreign fighters, including many American soldiers of fortune, are fighting and dying in the Ukrainian war theater. According to this report by CNN, the United States is even finding it hard to bring back the bodies of its fighters killed in the Ukrainian battlefield. So even though the United States does not directly have any boots on the ground in the Ukraine war, mercenary soldiers of the American nationality are playing an active role in Ukraine. Donald Trump had promised to take the United States out of the forever wars, but the Ukraine war has now acquired a whole new dimension. Donald Trump wants to make aid conditional to Ukraine, provided Kiev gives access to its rare earth minerals. And now, Volodymyr Zelensky, laying out the once classified maps of the Ukrainian rare earth minerals, has said that he is ready to do a deal.
These deposits are priceless. It is huge amounts of money, huge. That is why we need to protect it. So if we are talking about a deal, that's what the Americans want, then let's do a deal. We are only for it, let's do the deal. This is what I told President Trump when we were together. I told him, this is the victory plan. Why victory? Victory for all. We will protect those trillions. We will prevent Russia from mining the minerals which will later be used to produce technologies for the three evil countries of the axis of evil.
Rare earths are a group of 17 metals used to make magnets that turn power into motion for electric vehicles, cell phones, missile systems, and other electronics. There are no known substitutes. China, with whom Trump has threatened a trade war, is the world's largest producer of rare earths and many other critical minerals. Currently, China accounts for about 60% of the global rare earth mine production, with share jumps up to 90% of processed rare earths and magnet output. Vladimir Putin has time and again indicated that he's ready for talks to end the Ukraine war, but the sticking point has been on what terms.
We would better meet and have a calm conversation on all issues of interest to both the United States and Russia based on today's realities. We are ready. But I repeat, this primarily depends on the decision and choice of the current US administration. We always had a business-like, pragmatic, but also trusting relationship with the current US president. I couldn't disagree with him that if he had been president, if they hadn't stolen victory from him in 2020, the crisis that emerged in Ukraine in 2022 could have been avoided.
Russia currently occupies about 20% of the Ukrainian land, which interestingly also happens to be the most mineral-rich region of Ukraine. Moscow has no intentions of returning back the land that it has captured with its military might. To agree to a ceasefire with the current borders for Donald Trump would be tantamount to a surrender on Russian terms. And what has sweetened the deal for the new American president is the allure of Ukrainian rare earth minerals, which may mean that this conflict could grind on with no immediate resolution. Almost 2 weeks ago, the Rwandan-backed M23 rebels had seized Goma, the largest city in the capital of the North Kivu province in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, in a lightning offensive. Subsequent to the capture of Goma, fighting escalated in the South Kivu province, with the M23 rebels looking to expand their control beyond Goma. The United Nations estimates that at least about 2,800 people were killed in Goma due to the violence. In addition to this, more than 500,000 people have been displaced since the beginning of this year alone. On Monday, the M23 rebels declared a unilateral ceasefire. But just 2 days later, they seized control of Nyabibwe, a mining town in the South Kivu province. On Friday, at a special session of the United Nations Human Rights Council, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, warned that the worst is yet to come.
The mineral-rich Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo has been blighted by war for more than 3 decades. More than 120 rebel groups have been fighting with the Congolese forces for power, land and valuable mineral resources estimated to be worth $24 trillion. Preeminent among these armed groups is the M23 or March 23 movement, which is a largely Tutsi rebel group linked with the neighboring Rwanda. Kigali is accused of seeking to profit from the region's mineral resources such as gold and coltan, a metallic ore considered vital in the manufacturing of mobile phones and laptops. Kigali, refuting these allegations, has claimed that its primary concern is to eradicate the fighters linked with the 1994 Rwandan genocide. After more than 3 years of fighting, Goma, a city of 2 million people, fell to the M23 rebels on 26th of January in a lightning offensive. Nearly 3,000 people were killed and 2,880 were injured, although it is feared that the actual number could be significantly higher. Severe shortage of food, shelter, electricity and drinking water was also reported. The rebel coalition Alliance Fleuve Congo, which includes the M23 group, threatened to continue their offensive to the capital, Kinshasa. As M23 rebels moved closer to South Kivu's province capital, Bukavu, the second biggest city in eastern Congo after Goma, tensions rose, prompting hundreds of residents to pray for peace. Though a unilateral ceasefire was declared by the M23 rebels on Monday, in an apparent violation, the rebels seized the mining town of Nyabibwe in the South Kivu province on Wednesday. A day prior to that, a military court in the Democratic Republic of Congo had issued an international arrest warrant for the leader of the Alliance Fleuve Congo, Corneille Nangaa. According to the order, Nangaa is to be arrested wherever he may be found and brought to the Congolese territory. As violence engulfed the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, a special session of the United Nations Human Rights Council convened on Friday to discuss the Congo crisis, where the UN Human Rights Chief stressed the need for urgent international action in order to stem human suffering.
Et je suis profondément perturbé.
I am deeply disturbed when I see this escalation of violence once again. Since the beginning of the year, the M23 armed group, supported by the Rwandan Defense Forces, has intensified its offensive in the North Kivu and South Kivu provinces. At this moment, tensions are rising in South Kivu. If nothing is done, the worst may still be yet to come for the inhabitants of the east, but also beyond the DRC.
Augmente dans le Sud Kivu.
At the urgent session requested by the Democratic Republic of Congo, a resolution was adopted urging M23 rebels to withdraw immediately from occupied areas. And a decision was taken to launch an investigation into alleged violations and atrocities committed during the fighting in eastern Congo. In defense of his country, Rwandan Ambassador James Gango said that his country was not responsible for the instability, further claiming that evidence had emerged of an imminent large-scale attack against Rwanda.
We categorically oppose the DRC attempts to portraying Rwanda as being responsible for the instability in eastern DRC. It is a well-known deflection tactic used to escape being accountable for the atrocities Kinshasa and its allied armed group are inflicting on their own citizens. What is clear, however, is the imminent threat the current situation poses to Rwanda. Following the fall of Goma, new evidence has come in light regarding an imminent large-scale attack against Rwanda.
With no military solution to the conflict in sight, diplomacy, it seems, is the need of the hour. The question is, how committed are both Kinshasa as well as Kigali to a political solution to the rapidly escalating conflict?
The almost 22-month-long civil war in Sudan between the Sudanese armed forces and its former ally, the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, has intensified in recent weeks. On the 6th of February, the Sudanese army advanced on central Khartoum from multiple axes and is reportedly just 3 kilometers from the paramilitary-controlled Republican Palace. Since it regained Omdurman across the Nile River almost about a year ago, the army's advance on the capital city of Khartoum is its biggest victory. Last month, in a major blow to the paramilitary, the Sudanese armed forces had recaptured the strategic city of Wad Madani from the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces after almost about a year. Our next report gets you more details.
Close to 22 months of power struggle between the warring generals in Sudan exhibits no sign of abating. The Sudanese army, helmed by the country's de facto leader, Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, has been at war with the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces led by al-Burhan's former deputy, Mohammed Dagalo, since mid-April 2023. The trigger was the planned integration of the paramilitary RSF into the regular army, an internationally backed political transition plan. In a lightning offensive, the RSF had quickly taken over most of the capital Khartoum and rapidly spread into at least half the country. But the Sudanese army has regained significant ground in recent weeks and mounted a fierce offensive to reclaim full control of the capital, Khartoum. The backlash came in the form of a strike by the RSF on a market in the city of Omdurman on the 1st of February. According to the Sudan Health Ministry, at least 54 people were killed and 158 wounded in the paramilitary strike. The RSF, however, denied targeting the market and instead pointed an accusatory finger at the Sudanese army of launching attacks against civilians. Since the Sudan civil war erupted on 15th April 2023, the clashes between Sudanese army and the paramilitary RSF have killed at least 29,700 people and displaced more than 12.4 million people. The United Nations estimates that more than 1 million people have crossed into South Sudan, putting a strain on the resources of that country. Adding insult to injury, the Assistant Commander-in-Chief of the Sudan Armed Forces, Yasir al-Atta, alleged that South Sudanese nationals make up 65% of the paramilitary RSF. Denying the accusation, the South Sudanese Foreign Ministry stressed on Tuesday that its position is neutral and it is in South Sudan's best interest for the conflict to end.
President Salva Kiir Mayardit ordered the opening of South Sudan's borders to Sudanese civilians fleeing the war. Many of these individuals have since established businesses in South Sudan or engaged in professional roles such as university lecturers and medical professionals. Others have reported to refugee camps or crossed into neighboring countries.
A day after, the Sudanese army claimed to have cleared out the neighborhoods of Al-Remila and the industrial area in central Khartoum, barely 3 kilometers from the RSF-controlled Republican Palace. Alarmingly, fighting has also erupted between the Sudanese armed forces and the Sudan People's Liberation Movement North in South Kordofan in southern Sudan. At least 80 people have been killed and dozens more have been wounded in escalating violence in Kadugli, the capital of the South Kordofan state. In addition to this, the security situation in Sudan's southeastern Blue Nile state is extremely precarious.
Turning to Sudan, the resident and humanitarian coordinator in the country, Clementine Nkweta Salami, warned today that South Kordofan and Blue Nile states are on the brink of catastrophe, as the violence there continues to escalate at an alarming rate. As of yesterday, the civilian death toll following recent shelling in South Kordofan's capital, Kadugli, had increased to 80, with some 36 others injured.
For peace to prevail in Sudan, both the warring generals must come to the negotiating table and external interference must immediately stop. Till that breakthrough happens, one of the worst humanitarian nightmares in recent history will continue to worsen with each passing day in a country which has experienced only brief democratic interludes.
The Nordic nation of Sweden was jolted by its worst mass shooting on the 4th of February. 10 people of multiple nationalities, different genders and ages were killed and 6 others were grievously wounded by the gunman, who reportedly then turned the gun on himself when encountered by the quick responding police at the Adult Education Center in the city of Örebro. The Swedish investigators are yet to pin down a motive for the Tuesday massacre, which has sent shockwaves across the country, where school shootings are pretty rare. Given that the assailant was reportedly heard shouting, "You will leave Europe," could this dastardly attack be an incident of hate crime? Our next report gets you the details.
Fourth of February will go down in Swedish history as a dark day. It's a day when the residents of central Swedish city of Örebro, about 200 kilometers west of capital Stockholm, were sadly awakened to the savagery in the world. According to the local media, a 35-year-old unemployed recluse, Rickard Andersson, attacked the Riksbergska Adult Educational Center in Örebro, killing 10 people and injuring 6 others, 5 of whom are in a critical but stable condition. Riksbergska School provides adult education for people aged over 20 who did not finish primary school or secondary school, as well as Swedish classes for immigrants. Reportedly, the gunman, who was suffering from psychological problems, was previously enrolled at the school, but had not attended classes since 2021. Addressing a press conference, the Swedish Prime Minister branded the heinous attack as the worst mass shooting in the country's history.
We have seen today brutal, deadly violence against totally innocent people. This is the worst mass shooting in Swedish history. Still a lot is unanswered, and I can't give the answers. But there will come a time where we will know what has happened, how it could have happened, and what are the motives that may lie behind.
The Swedish police, who faced dead people, injured people, screams and smoke at the attack site, described the scene of the country's worst mass shooting as one resembling an inferno.
Ruling out any apparent links to gangs, the police were of the opinion that the suspect did not appear to be motivated by ideology. Local media reported that the suspect had no previous convictions and had procured his weapons legally. Several long-barreled weapons were recovered from him by the police.
He has a firearms license for 4 weapons, and these 4 weapons have been seized. 3 of the weapons were next to him when the police secured him inside the building. Our assessment, based on the preliminary investigation that has been done, is that he has acted alone.
Though claiming to be aware of the identity of the assailant, the police have adopted a cautious approach and refrained from confirming the identity before conclusively verifying it via DNA, dental and fingerprint data. Witness interviews and interviews with people with any links to the perpetrator are being conducted to understand why such a terrible tragedy has befallen the people of Örebro. Though school attacks are a rarity in Sweden, shootings and bombings linked to gang violence have been on the rise recently. In March 2022, 2 teachers at a secondary school in Malmö were stabbed to death by an 18-year-old student. 2 months prior to that violent incident, a 16-year-old had wounded another student and a teacher in a knife attack at a school in the small town of Kristianstad. And in October 2015, 3 people were killed by a sword-wielding assailant in a racially motivated attack at a school in the western town of Trollhättan. In a country where gun laws are strict, a tragedy of this magnitude has once again brought into focus the menace of gun violence and the perils of hate crime.
And with that's a wrap on this edition of World at War. And if you want to reach out to me with any comments, feedback or suggestions, please feel free to do so on the ID that you're seeing on your screens. I'm your host, Mohammed Saleh, and I'll see you again next week.